Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to The Wealth. David Goggins is the toughest man alive. There's no doubt about it. Goggins is the only member of the US Armed Forces to complete SEAL training, US Army Ranger School, and Air Force Tactical Air Controller training. Any of those accomplishments alone would have been impressive, but that's not all. He's also the current Guinness World Record holder for the most number of pull-ups done in 24 hours. Alongside that record are multiple first-place finishes at the most brutal ultra-endurance events, which attracts the toughest competitors from all around the world. How does someone consistently push himself to his physical and mental limits? Let's find out. Today we have for you 5 things people ignore about Dave Goggins. But before we start, I want you guys to hit that red subscribe button to enter our monthly shoutout giveaway. Just comment down below saying I subscribed and we'll enter you into the giveaway. Number 1. Be willing to suffer. You wouldn't know it, but Goggins hates running. He hates it with a passion. Growing up, Goggins has always been on the larger side. He loved powerlifting and had the physique to show for it. But in the world of ultra, such a large frame is virtually unheard of. It was just inefficient to move that much weight over such long distances. Goggins knew he was going to suffer. That was precisely his plan. That was the only way he was going to raise enough funds for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. People respond to pain. If I go out and wash cars for $10, who gives a damn? People want to see you throw up, cry, and go through a tremendous amount of suffering. But for David Goggins, suffering is not just about raising funds. As he says, suffering is the true test of life. Goggins isn't just training for a race, he's training for the tragedies and inevitably strike each and every one of us. He does this so he doesn't fall apart if he gets the 2 a.m. call from the hospital informing him that his mother has passed away. In other words, Goggins is the modern-day stoic, but unlike the ancient philosophers who advised that we should periodically embrace suffering, Goggins has actually made suffering a habit. Strengthen your mind and your resolve by voluntarily putting yourself through situations in which you struggle. Callous your mind the same way you do your hands. Take the path of most resistance every day of your life. That's how David Goggins has become the toughest man alive, and according to him, the happiest as well. Quote, having lived the life I've lived and having seen the other side, not being afraid to attack what was in front of me has made me happy. Number 2. Use your cookie jar. Goggins has a secret weapon that he calls upon when he's about to break. Like many others, he has a cookie jar that he reaches into for the occasional treat, but this jar doesn't contain any of the things you might typically find. There are no Oreos or Chips Ahoy cookies in there. Instead, it contains every setback he has overcome. He'll remember that he's a Navy SEAL who's completed Hell Week 3 times. He'll remind himself that he's been through this pain before and survived. The obstacle in front of him is nothing compared to what he has faced. As Goggins tells us in Can't Hurt Me, quote, remembering what you've been through and how that has strengthened your mindset can lift you out of a negative brain loop and help you bypass those weak 1-second impulses to give in. Goggins never dwells on his accomplishments. The only time he revisits them is when he needs extra fuel for a push he's making. He allows himself to reach into his cookie jar only when there's a need. It's never a treat. In contrast, we often spend too much time admiring our own work and accomplishments when we really should be advancing to the next task. We stroke our own egos and feel good at the moment, but we aren't getting anywhere. We would accomplish so much more if we spent our time doing the work and then occasionally looking back at how far we've come. The cookie jar should be used for fuel and not a distraction. Number 3. Mental visualization. David Goggins believes that he's the toughest man on the planet. He thinks that he can complete virtually any task set before him. And he probably can. But the point is that you have to see yourself accomplishing something before it really happens. The mind has to conceive it before the body can achieve it. The question he asks himself in times of struggle contains only 2 simple words. What if? When he first walked into the Navy SEAL recruiter's office, Goggins was told that there were only 35 African Americans in the past 70 years who had made it through. Goggins asked himself, what if I could be the 36? These days, he asks himself the same question whenever he's struggling through a run. It's the same question that helps him get through when his body and mind are broken and begging for him to stop. Seeing himself succeed and do the impossible gives him the shivers. That drives him to attack every day and challenge with a vengeance. Number 4. Deconstruct things. So how exactly did Goggins power through the remaining 30 miles? I broke this thing down into small pieces. I said, I got to get the nutrition. I got to be able to stand up before I can go through the 30 miles. I taped up my ankles and then my feet, and that's how I got through that race. It's an experience the SEAL would likely never forget. This lesson of mental deconstruction has its roots in a process that all Navy SEALs must go through, Hell Week. It's the toughest period of a SEAL training. Trainees are put through 125 hours of continuous training and typically only get 2 hours of sleep during that period. They're constantly cold, wet, and miserable. The idea is to drain the trainees physically and mentally, and then see what sort of decisions they make. Instructors do their best to make trainees ring the bell, which is used to announce that they're quitting. Nobody holds back here. David Goggins went through Hell Week 3 times, all in a span of a year. Rolled over from his previous 2 classes, first due to illness and then to injury. He was given one last chance to complete SEAL training. Goggins did just that. Focusing on one challenge at a time, he would eventually graduate in this final attempt. Broken down into small pieces, there is no obstacle that is insurmountable. We find that there's always a step that's actionable. Add up the small bits and we would have accomplished something we never thought possible. One step at a time is how 100-mile marathons get completed. Number 5. Physical limitations. Here comes the kicker. Up until 2010, David Goggins had been living with an undetected congenital heart defect, which essentially left him with a hole in his heart. The condition leaves his heart functioning at only 75% capacity and typically prevents people from engaging in activities such as scuba diving or anything at high altitude. And yet, David Goggins has led an exemplary military career, with multiple athletic achievements in his name. He tells us that the world can't hurt him, but really, he's chosen not to let it. It's absurd what he's been able to do despite the numerous disadvantages he was saddled with. Perhaps some of us are wired differently, maybe he isn't human at all, or maybe we just need to leave our excuses at the door. Guys, that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our future content. Also guys, it really does help us out if you pick one of the 2 videos you're seeing on screen right now and give it a watch. With that said, I'll see you in the next video.